You blinked. That's what she said, out loud, to my face, with a grin that looked almost proud. And that was it. That was the moment. The gesture. The turning point. I know you don't understand. Yet. But you will. It happened at the kitchen table at 11:13 p.m. A Thursday. We were playing our stupid game again. You know the one. Stare at each other until someone breaks. No rules. No stakes. Just silence, unspoken tension, and the smell of burnt rice in the air because we forgot the pot again. She leaned forward, chin resting on her hand, wine still half full. She hadn't blinked once in over a minute. I cracked. You blinked, she said, like she had just won something far more significant than a dumb staring contest. And then she laughed. Not a haha that was fun laugh. No, a this confirms what I already knew about you kind of laugh. The kind of laugh that curdles in your stomach and doesn't leave. She stood up, slid her chair back slowly like it was choreographed, and said, "You always blink first." I thought it was a joke. I hoped it was a joke. But she walked out of the kitchen and didn't come back. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not ever, really. The next time I saw her, she was packing a suitcase in complete silence. No yelling. No tears. Just folding clothes like she was preparing for a weekend getaway. And all I could do was sit there like a spineless idiot, whispering things like, "What did I do? Can we talk about this? Is this about last week? I can change. I want to change." But she didn't answer. Not until she zipped the suitcase and stood by the door. Then she looked at me, looked through me, honestly, and said, "You blinked in every way that mattered." And that was the end. Or maybe the beginning. I don't know. I just know I can't unhear those words. Or stop replaying that laugh. Or stop wondering how long she'd been planning to say it. Because the worst betrayals don't start with screaming. They start with a smile, and end with a blink. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there at the kitchen table, staring at her empty chair like it was a crime scene. The wine glass still had her lipstick on it. The rice had crusted to the bottom of the pot. There was a sock under the chair that didn't match anything she owned. I don't even know why that mattered. But somehow it did. I kept telling myself she'd come back. That it was just one of her dramatic exits. Taryn loved making statements. She once walked out of a dinner party because someone said Schitt's Creek was overrated. She left a Pilates class halfway through because the instructor didn't respect negative space. So yeah, I thought this was one of those moments. She'd cool off, come back in the morning, maybe toss me a snarky apology wrapped in a hug. That was our pattern. It wasn't healthy, but it was familiar. And I clung to familiar. Instead, I woke up the next day to a silence so complete it sounded loud. Her closet was half empty. The drawer with her socks and mismatched earrings, the one I wasn't allowed to touch, was wide open and hollow. She had taken her passport, her yoga mat, and the mug I made her at a pottery class in 2019. But she left the Polaroid photo of us from Coney Island taped to the fridge. Her smile in that photo looked real. Mine looked like I had just been tricked into believing something that never existed. Around noon, I found a note. Not in the obvious places. No envelope on the pillow, no sticky note on the mirror. No, she had folded it inside the cereal box. I only found it because I was desperate enough to eat dry honey bunches of oats and feel something. The paper was creased and thin, written in that absurdly elegant handwriting she always used when she was being deadly serious. You blinked. I needed you to hold the stare, even when it got uncomfortable, especially then. That was it. That was all she wrote. I didn't know whether to scream or vomit. Who ends a marriage like that? With cryptic metaphors and emotional riddles stuffed between flakes and clusters? I called her, straight to voicemail. I texted her, no response. I DM'd her on Instagram, which is honestly humiliating to admit. She left me on read. Twice. The next few days were a blur. I told work I had food poisoning, which wasn't entirely a lie. I couldn't keep anything down. My stomach twisted every time I opened the front door and didn't see her shoes. I started keeping the lights on at night just in case she came back and needed to find her way to the bedroom. I even started practicing staring in the mirror. I wish I was joking. I'd time myself to see how long I could go without blinking, like I could somehow reverse time and prove I had the strength she claimed I lacked. But what really broke me was what I found in the junk drawer on day 4. Under expired coupons, tangled earbuds, and a broken watch I'd been meaning to fix for 2 years, there was a second note. This one was on the back of a receipt from a Thai place we hated. If you're looking here, you're still trying. But I already left when you stopped. That was when it finally hit me. This wasn't a breakdown. It was a countdown. And I had slept through it. I didn't go to work at all that week. I couldn't. Not because I was wallowing, which I absolutely was, but because everything around me suddenly looked like her. The bathroom sink still had her charcoal face scrub in the corner. The couch cushion on the left still had the dent from her late-night Hulu marathons. And the fridge? That was the worst part. It was full of the stuff I liked. And only that. The oat milk, the weird salsa no one else liked, those cheap frozen mac and cheese bowls I pretended to be embarrassed about, but secretly loved. She had cleared out everything else. Her teas, her almond yogurt, even the mustard she insisted on keeping in the door. Gone. Like she had vanished, but made damn sure I noticed. That Friday, the doorbell rang. I jumped like I'd been electrocuted. I thought maybe, just maybe, she was back. That she'd forgotten something, or maybe changed her mind. I sprinted to the door so fast I nearly tripped on the rug she used to threaten to throw out. But it wasn't her. It was a delivery guy holding a box. No sender. No label. Just my name. My full name, spelled right. Which was strange, because she always used to leave out the second T in Everett when she was mad at me. This one had both. Inside the box was a single item. A snow globe. Not the kind you buy at an airport. Not a souvenir. This one was custom. Inside the glass dome was a miniature kitchen table. 2 tiny chairs. And in one of them, a little figurine that looked exactly like me. Down to the stupid glasses and slouched posture. The other chair? Empty. At first I thought it was a sick joke. Some friend of hers rubbing it in. But then I noticed the tiny detail. On the table, between the chairs, was a microscopic folded napkin. You blinked. She had made this. Or had it made. Either way, the message was clear. This wasn't just her leaving. This was performance art. And I was the only audience. I kept the snow globe on my nightstand, which I know makes me sound like a sad little Victorian ghost. But it was the only thing left that connected me to her. It was all I had. That night, something inside me cracked. I went into her side of the closet. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe her smell, maybe some hidden note tucked in the lining of a coat. But what I found was worse. There was a shoebox. Not hidden. Just waiting. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them. All of me. Sleeping. Eating. Staring at my laptop. Walking ahead of her at the park. Sitting in the car. I never even noticed her taking them. And she hated candid photos. Said they made her look unready. These weren't memories. They were surveillance. Every photo was labeled on the back. In that same careful, borderline obsessive handwriting. He didn't hear me call his name. He laughed too late at the joke. He blinked again, metaphorically. There were timestamps. Mood notes. One said, almost snapped at the waiter. Recovered. Still no progress. I felt like I had been dating a psychologist running an unapproved case study. Or a filmmaker shooting a breakup in slow motion. That night I didn't cry. Not because I didn't want to. But because I suddenly didn't trust that I was alone. I started wondering if there were cameras. I started checking the vents. And still, I missed her. That's the worst part. The grief doesn't ask if you feel safe. It just keeps showing up. Like her notes. Like her empty chair in the snow globe. Like her voice in my head, whispering, "You always blink first." I knew I shouldn't have gone into her laptop. Even as I was typing the password, my hands were shaking like I was committing a federal crime. But the guilt didn't stop me, because neither did the login screen. The password? Eloise 13. Her middle name, which she always hated. And the number 13, which she always claimed was secretly lucky. For someone so meticulous, it was disappointingly simple. Almost like she wanted me to get in. Like this, too, was part of the script. Her desktop was pristine. Just 4 folders. Work, taxes, trips, and one called Everett. I clicked it. Inside were subfolders named by year. 2019, 2020, 2021. Each year had months. Each month had days. Each day had files. Photos. Videos. Notes. It wasn't just a folder. It was an archive. A complete, clinical record of our relationship from her perspective. But not the highlight reel you might expect from someone who loved you. No, this was like watching a slow-motion autopsy. Every laugh we shared was labeled. Every fight, broken down into cause and recovery time. There were audio recordings. Little snippets. I heard myself speaking in the car, mumbling half answers while scrolling through my phone. I heard my own voice saying, "I'm just tired," over and over again. And worse, I heard her voice, off mic, whispering things like, Day 77. Still no eye contact during apologies. There was a file called Blink Tracker. I opened it. It was a spreadsheet. Rows and rows of dates, moments, timestamps. Each row had a rating. Held, faltered, blinked, avoided. There was even a column labeled, Potential for Change. Next to most entries, in red text, it simply said, Low. I should have logged out right then. Shut it all down. Pretended I never saw it. But I couldn't. Because tucked between all the digital carnage was a file I wasn't supposed to find. A video. No title. Just a timestamp. 3 weeks before she left. I hit play. The footage was shaky, like she had set her phone down on a kitchen counter. It showed her sitting on our couch, facing the camera directly. No makeup. No filters. Just raw Taryn, which was rare. She cleared her throat and started talking like she was making a confession in some twisted reality show. If he finds this, it means I've either chickened out or he broke the pattern. Everett, if you're watching this, it means you finally looked beyond the surface. And I want you to know something. She leaned forward. Her voice lowered. This wasn't about punishing you. It was about proving to myself that I could leave before I disappeared. Because that's what you were doing to me. Slowly. Quietly. You weren't cruel. You weren't mean. But you weren't there. I became wallpaper in my own life. And I can't live like that. She paused, visibly fighting back tears. You didn't cheat. You didn't scream. You just stopped showing up emotionally. And I waited. For years. I built games. I left clues. I tried everything. But you always blinked first. She turned off the camera. Just like that. The screen went black, but I sat there for almost 20 minutes, frozen, staring at my reflection in the glossy laptop screen. She had filmed a goodbye message while I was upstairs gaming with headphones on. I remembered that night. She brought me tea, and I barely looked up. And now, I was here, digging through her mind like a grave robber, hoping to find love in the bones. But what I found instead was something else entirely. Because in the next folder, one I hadn't seen at first, was a zip file. Encrypted. Labeled. Do not open unless you're ready to see everything. I didn't open it right away. That zip file sat there on her desktop for nearly 6 hours. I paced around the apartment like a trapped animal, brushing my teeth twice, making coffee I didn't drink, watching the same 10 seconds of a cooking video on YouTube over and over without registering a single thing. Because I knew, in that zip file, was something irreversible. Something I wouldn't be able to unsee or unfeel. But when you've already lost everything, curiosity doesn't feel dangerous anymore. It feels like your last connection to the person who left. The password field blinked at me mockingly. I tried the obvious ones first. Eloise 13, her birthday, my name, even you blinked. Nothing. Then I remembered something. Once, years ago, during a dumb trivia night at a bar with her friends, someone asked, "What's your partner's biggest fear?" Everyone laughed at the answers. Taryn didn't. She scribbled hers quietly and passed it to me under the table. It read, "Being forgotten while still alive." I typed that, without spaces, into the password box. It worked. The file extracted slowly, like it wanted to build suspense. Inside were 5 folders, each named after one word from the sentence. You blinked in every way that mattered. I started with you. Inside, a video montage. But not of us. Of me. Recorded on security cam footage from our apartment, FaceTime screen captures, random moments I didn't even know were being filmed. There was a clip of me asleep on the couch, mouth slightly open. Another of me eating cereal in silence while she watched from across the table. One where I was staring at my phone while she talked off camera about her father's health scare. I never looked up. Not once. It was humiliating. Worse than being yelled at. She didn't say a word. She just showed me who I had become. The second folder, blinked, was all text. Journal entries. Pages of them. Not rage-filled diary scribbles, but clear, deliberate reflections. As if she were writing to an invisible therapist she couldn't afford. Some entries were one-liners, like, "Today he kissed me without realizing he hadn't done it in 3 days." Others were longer. One was dated exactly 2 years before she left. "I'm slowly becoming a ghost in my own home. He doesn't hurt me. That would be easier. He just forgets to see me. And I wonder how long I can survive being invisible." Another one stopped me cold. "If I ever leave, I want him to feel it. I want him to finally realize I was here, even when I was silent. Especially then." I didn't know whether to scream or apologize to the walls. I was sitting in the same room she had written these in. The same room I had once bragged about finally organizing. Like neat shelves could compensate for emotional neglect. The third folder, in, was encrypted again. This time the password was obvious. Everett. Inside were screenshots, chats, DMs, some with her sister, a few with her co-workers, a few I didn't recognize. No affairs, no flirting, but all the same theme. She was preparing to disappear. Quietly, with surgical precision. One message thread from 8 months ago read, Taryn, if I ever leave, I won't slam a door. I'll fold the world around him until he realizes he's standing in a vacuum. Unknown, why don't you just leave? Taryn, because I want him to finally look for me. Not with his eyes, with his soul. I had never believed in soul searching until that moment. I just sat there, staring at that last sentence, wondering how many times she had cried while I was in the next room watching reruns. I moved on to the fourth folder. Only one file. A video labeled, Final Test. I hit play. It was a recording of our living room from a hidden angle. The timestamp was just a few days before she left. She walks into frame, holding a new book she had just bought. I remember that night. She sat on the couch, opened the book, and started reading aloud to me. Something about shadows and metaphors and the weight of silence. I barely acknowledged her. Nodded once. Kept typing. In the video, she stopped reading mid-sentence. Stared at me. The video zoomed slightly, digitally enhanced. She whispered, almost inaudibly, Are you ever going to see me again? I didn't answer. Just scratched my head. Adjusted my chair. On the video, she smiled. But it wasn't warm. It was final. Then she turned to the camera and said, That's it. That's all I needed. She stood, walked away, and never looked back. That was the real goodbye. Not the night she handed me the key to the storage unit. Not the suitcase. Not even the notes. This was the moment she left. And I had missed it in real time. Now, I watched it in replay. Alone. Surrounded by proof that I blinked in every way that mattered. There was still one folder left. Mattered. And that one wasn't about me. I opened the final folder, Mattered, expecting some grand emotional payoff. A love letter. A final goodbye. A last attempt to connect. After everything I'd seen, some desperate part of me still hoped she had left behind a sliver of softness. A crack in the armor. Something that whispered, I still loved you anyway. But what I found was a blueprint. A literal PDF file titled, Exit Protocol, Phase 2. I opened it. At first, I didn't understand. It was formatted like a strategy document. Headings, bullet points, color-coded timelines. It read like something you'd find in a corporate folder labeled Confidential. Except it wasn't about quarterly growth projections. It was about me. Page 1, Objective. Create a clean, irreversible emotional break without confrontation. Ensure he feels the absence, not the betrayal. Outcome must result in psychological confrontation with self, not partner. Page 2, Preliminary Conditioning. Reduce direct emotional engagement over 3 to 4 months. Increase symbolic gestures, silent dinners, staring games, small unspoken challenges. Introduce micro-abandonments, delayed responses, missing anniversaries, strategic silences. Track reactions. Assess readiness for extraction. Page 3, Primary Event Trigger. Gift unexpected storage space. Monitor reaction to isolation. Final test of emotional recognition. Does he notice the absence as abandonment or as kindness? Page 4, Post-exit echo phase. Leave accessible trail of curated materials. Allow discovery at his pace. Ensure all findings reinforce the central theme. She was present. He wasn't. No direct contact. All grief must lead inward. There were 7 pages. I read every word. Twice. I felt like I'd just discovered that the woman I married was a war general, and I had been the battlefield. This wasn't just a breakup. It was an operation. She hadn't just left me. She had architected my collapse. I sat in my chair, knees pulled to my chest like a kid, staring at my reflection in the black laptop screen. For the first time in weeks, I couldn't even cry. I didn't have the emotional bandwidth left. I was hollowed out, not from what she'd done, but from how long she'd been doing it without me ever noticing. Then something else caught my eye. Below the folder list, there was a document I hadn't seen before. It wasn't in the zip file. It was on her desktop. Plain white icon. No encryption. No password. Title, Schedule, June 22nd. That was the day after she left. I opened it. It was a screenshot, a calendar, and my name was on it. But not like dinner with Everett or call Everett's mom. No, it said, June 22nd, 7 p.m., Everett finds the camera. June 22nd, 11:30 p.m., Everett finds the shoebox. June 23rd, 1:45 a.m., Everett opens the laptop. June 23rd, 2:30 a.m., folder mattered, decision point. She had predicted everything, down to the minute. I looked at the time. It was 2:29 a.m. I swear to you, I felt the blood drain from my body, like I was being watched, like I was part of something bigger, and I was the only one who didn't know it was a show. But the worst part? She was right. About all of it. About me. I did blink. Every single time. And now I started to wonder if this whole thing, this whole 5-year marriage, had been a study, a slow-burning experiment in emotional erosion. A project she began with love and ended with control. Because at the bottom of that calendar screenshot, in a little handwritten scrawl, was one final line. If he makes it to the final file, give him what he thinks he wants. I sat frozen. The final file? I hadn't seen anything else. But then the laptop chimed. A small, green notification popped up. New file shared with you. Epiphany. MOV. I didn't click it. Not yet. I'm still sitting here, staring at it. Wondering if I'll watch it. Wondering if I'll be able to walk away this time. Or if she'll win again, from wherever she is. Because maybe this was never about love. Maybe this was about seeing how far a person can be dismantled before they realize they were never whole to begin with. It took me 47 minutes to press play. 47 full minutes of staring at the screen, blinking like an idiot, because I was afraid this file would be the final match tossed on the ruins of my dignity. And yet, I knew I was going to watch it the second it arrived. Of course I was. If she had told me to meet her at the edge of a cliff with a blindfold on, I probably would have shown up early. I double-clicked. The screen faded in from black. No music, just the quiet hum of what sounded like a basement or studio. The camera was fixed, a clean, steady shot. Taryn sat in the center of the frame. No props, no dramatic lighting. Just her, cross-legged on a white wooden floor, wearing an oversized sweater I thought she'd thrown out years ago. She didn't smile. She didn't speak right away. She just looked at the lens for 22 seconds, long enough to make me wonder if the video was broken. Then she finally sighed and started. If you're seeing this, you did it. You passed every checkpoint I built. You took the bait. You followed the trail. You touched the edge of the maze. And now you're here, sitting exactly where I left you. Because I knew you wouldn't be able to leave anything unfinished. She blinked slowly, deliberately. And before you start building me up into some villain or genius, let me be very clear. I never wanted to destroy you. But I needed to unhide you. I needed to drag you out of the version of yourself that was disappearing, not just from me, but from yourself. She tilted her head slightly, studying the camera like she was studying me. You used to be brilliant, Everett. Quietly, softly brilliant. I saw it in you. I loved it in you. And then life crushed it. Work, routine, fear. You started shrinking, little by little. You stopped creating. You stopped reaching. You stopped fighting for joy. You became a man who said, I'm fine so often that I forgot what your real voice sounded like. There was no bitterness in her tone. No cruelty. Just this haunting, mournful ache, like someone reading a eulogy at the wrong funeral. I needed to leave in a way that hurt. Not because I'm cruel, but because I knew pain was the only thing that could wake you up. I tried kindness. I tried patience. I tried everything subtle. But you ignored them all. You blinked. You always blinked. Then she did something unexpected. She picked up a Polaroid from the floor, held it to the camera. It was a photo of me, younger, smiling, sunburned at a music festival, wearing a stupid straw hat and holding a corn dog like it was the peak of my life. I barely remembered that day. She remembered everything. This guy, she said, tapping the photo, he's still in there. Somewhere. But I wasn't the one to bring him back. And I realized, maybe I never could be. I felt my throat tighten, but I couldn't cry. I was beyond tears. This wasn't grief. It was something heavier, more permanent. She leaned closer to the lens now, voice barely above a whisper. You didn't fail me, Everett. You failed yourself. I just refused to go down with you. Silence. She placed the Polaroid on the floor. Then she reached out a frame and brought back an envelope. Handwritten on the front was my full name again. Everett Tate. All spelled right. This is the only thing I physically left you. It's in the place you never think to look. She didn't say where. She didn't give a hint. She just smiled, soft, sad, but real, and said, "When you find it, you'll understand everything." Then, without warning, she stood up, walked out of frame. The camera kept recording for a full minute after she disappeared. No music, no fade out, just empty space and ambient hum. And then it ended. I sat in the dark for what felt like hours. The file name, Epiphany, MOV, was seared into my mind like a brand. She wasn't just gone. She had already processed everything, made peace, wrapped it in logic, in empathy, in war strategy. And I was still standing in the wreckage, looking for reasons when she had already packed the epilogue. But there was still one thing left. The envelope. The final tangible thread in a ghost hunt I never wanted to be part of. I didn't sleep that night. I tore through the apartment. I emptied drawers, ripped open the backs of books, checked coat pockets, dug through the freezer, pulled the lining out of the couch, crawled under the bed, flipped the mattress, screamed into closets. Nothing. Until sunrise, when I went into the laundry room. The one place I never went because we always used pickup service, and opened the broken dryer we hadn't touched in a year. There it was. A single manila envelope. Dusty, but unmistakably hers. I didn't open it yet. Not because I wasn't ready, but because, for the first time, I didn't want to blink. My hands were shaking as I peeled open the flap. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper. Thick, soft paper, like the kind you'd use for a wedding invitation. Taryn had always been a tactile person. Textures mattered to her. I could almost hear her voice in my head. Even closure deserves quality. There was no letterhead, no salutation, just handwriting in deep blue ink. It said, "You were never meant to stay asleep forever. This isn't punishment. It's release. Wake up." That was it. 3 lines. No goodbye, no return address, no emotional autopsy. Just that final nudge, the last push off the ledge she'd spent years quietly guiding me toward. And somehow it was enough. I don't know how long I sat there in the laundry room, holding that piece of paper like it was sacred scripture. But something inside me shifted. Not snapped, not broke. Shifted. Like a fog lifting, just enough to see the outline of what came next. That morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went outside without my phone. I walked to the little bookstore on Belmont Avenue, the one Taryn used to drag me to, where I always pretended to be bored, but secretly loved the smell of ink and wood and old lives pressed into paper. I bought a blank journal, leather-bound, no lines, just open space. And I wrote, for hours, not about her. Not about the pain. About me. About who I used to be and who I might still become. About the version of myself that had been sitting quietly in the corner, waiting for me to stop blinking long enough to see him. And I kept going. The next day, I cleaned the apartment. Not because it was messy, but because it felt like an exorcism. I donated 3 garbage bags of clothes. I sold the couch. I painted one of the bedroom walls bright yellow, just because. I deleted every app one hadn't used in 6 months. I called my brother for the first time in 2 years and apologized without excuse. And I made a rule. If it doesn't wake me up, it doesn't stay. Weeks passed. Then a month. I didn't hear from her. But I didn't expect to. The truth is, she didn't leave me. She released me. From the version of myself I was too afraid to leave behind. From the sleepwalking. From the excuses. From the safety net of passive love. And for the first time in my life, I stopped needing someone to rescue me. I stopped waiting for a sign, a nudge, a breakdown disguised as a lesson. I started listening to the silence, not as a threat, but as an invitation. A few days ago, I walked by that storage unit. Unit 1413. I had the key in my pocket. I unlocked it, expecting it to be empty. But it wasn't. Inside was the same folding chair, the same rug, and a new note, taped to the wall, written in the same blue ink. If you made it here again, it means you're awake now. Leave the door open when you go. Someone else might need it. So I did. I left it wide open. And I walked into the sun. Eyes forward. No blinking.